Hi, welcome to Whole. My name is David Stone, and this is my friend Robert Grant. And we're basically having the conversations that we've been having for years, but this time just pressing record. Um, hopefully, it can be interesting as well as helpful. To have some conversations and bring some of these conversations that we have had that maybe a little bit we talk about them quietly in the coffee shop, right, Robert?
Yeah, well, maybe not always quietly,
Well,
but,
that's true.
we
That's
talk about it. Yeah, and have been for years. Now we're finally, like you said, pressing
exact
record. Now
exactly.
everybody
So maybe that
hear
might
these
get
sounds, they get this.
yeah, it might get us in trouble. It might get us in trouble. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are, um, with your family first and then professionally.
Absolutely. I love that I love that we're kicking off,
Yeah.
number episode number 1 of this
Yes.
podcast, just sharing about us since we're
Yeah.
gonna be talking a lot,
Yeah.
so people have an idea about who we are. So I guess, career and professional lane, I am a licensed mental health professional and a registered play therapist, supervisor, national certified counselor. I obviously do a lot of mental health things and own and operate a private practice clinic, as well as do a lot of supervision, consultation. I do a lot of trainings on mental health topics, primarily related to child therapy, play therapy, family therapy, and neurodivergent care and neurodivergent topics. And I've written a lot of books on these topics as well. And I've been doing all that kind of work for close to 30 years, which seems really wild to say. I'm not even sure if I'm comfortable saying that, but
We're
it's
not that
true.
old. We're not that old, are we?
Well, we
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that keeps me busy on the professional front. I think teaching, educating, doing therapy, very mental health focused in my journey ever since college.
Yeah.
Um, and that keeps me pretty busy for sure. I do have a life outside of career things, which maybe we'll get into more as we go along in this podcast.
Yeah.
That's the career piece, David.
Nice. Nice. So, I do know your wife, and I've known her actually, well, I've known both of you about the same time, college.
Yes,
And then
yes,
I had the joy of performing your wedding. And so,
yes,
so that's very cool. So, Faith, and you have a son, and he's
yes.
how old?
14. Yep.
14.
Full
High
on
school.
teen.
High school,
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. Well, we had, again, as I said, we came together and have been friends since college. So that would be the 90s or so.
um,
It's a long time ago, about
yeah.
30 years
We-
ago. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And then we got
Yeah.
reacquainted when your counseling practice, you were next door to our church plant in Nixa.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
yeah, so I've been pastoring now for over 30 years, and just recently kind of have been venturing into professional life coaching and, kind of doing that stuff. My full time job is with college students. I work with the Baptist Student Union at Missouri State University, where we go Bears, where we graduated from. And yeah, basically, we have been having these kind of conversations. It's hard for us to I know we've had this conversation over the years, but it's hard for us to unwind, or at least for me, it's sometimes hard for me to unwind my professional life or my clergy life from real life, and that kind of thing. But um, I have a wife, Jenny, and we've been married. It'll be 31 years in June. And then we have a 24-year-old. He'll be 25 in April. Taylor. He's married to Chandler, and they've been married it'll be coming up on 2 years. And then we have our youngest boy, Tucker, and he is 19, and he is trying to chase the neon rainbow and living his honky tonk dream. Maybe
Oh
not
my
honky
god.
tonk, but at least his singer songwriting
Yeah,
dreams. And so if you go to Tucker Stone Music, you can find him. So
yeah.
um, tell me a little bit about your faith and church background. Why and that'll kind of we'll get to why we started this, but I think it's a big part of it, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is interesting is we met, you and I, in a church, I believe,
Yeah.
and but yet we have very different kind of backgrounds with our church. Not so much our faith.
Right.
That's kind of was always connected us, but our church experience. And so I definitely want you to share
Yeah.
about yours as well. And yours is so much more intertwined with your career in a lot of ways. But for me, I grew up starting off, well, I mean, I was always going to church and then a church. I mean, I don't have a memory of a time
Yeah.
when I wasn't in church. Most of my family went to church, were Christians, and I was raised in that kind of faith belief system. And we, in the early years, were very Pentecostal churches, these
Hmm.
full gospel Pentecostal churches. And we'll get into that, as we go along in this podcast. I have a lot of memories of that, some good, some not so good. And then my family wasn't really connected very much to any church denomination.
Hmm.
So throughout my childhood, we moved a lot. And so we went to a lot of different churches. I spent time in Baptist churches, Assembly of God churches, Nazarene churches, non denominational churches. By the time I was an adult, I mean, I had experienced all these different denominations, and that's been kind of a unique perspective because they all sort of have their own ways of doing things that are
Yeah.
different from the other, even though there are some connecting ideologies, of course. And then whenever I'd visit family members, who knows whatever church I'd be going to, whatever one they went to. And so there was just a lot of variety, but also a lot of change
Mm.
uh, for me too. So my faith really became very centralized. Like the stability of my faith was my personal relationship with God,
Yeah.
my time in the Bible, my time in prayer, because the church piece was always changing and the people
Mm.
were always changing.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
stability was in my personal
Mm.
quiet times, reading, studying, learning. And then in high school, I did attend a private Christian school.
Okay.
That experience coming into college, joined campus ministries,
Hmm.
and as well as you did too. We
Yeah.
were in the
Yeah.
same college and doing similar campus ministries. Met you at a Baptist church that you were going
Yeah.
to.
Right. My home
And
church I grew up in. Yeah.
yeah, and so I feel like looking back, if I'm thinking about my church and faith history, It's definitely stabilized more as an adult in that I'm not all over the place with different churches, and I feel like that time was sometimes chaotic,
Mhm.
and sometimes strange,
Mm.
uh, which we'll get into in different episodes.
Right.
But also, I do appreciate, I guess, going from a church to a church where they're kind of saying an opposite thing. I
Mm.
do appreciate that I felt like it drew me closer to, well, what is the Bible saying and what is God saying to me, and
Yeah.
I do feel like that kind of focus on God and
Mhm.
my faith journey as an
Mhm.
individual was strengthened through those experiences.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was interesting, but good in some ways. And definitely there's some mental health stuff in there, which
Right.
we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear you share about yours because it's different than mine.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and you got a great story and history that a lot of people will connect with as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. We met at that church. Um, I had I had never gone to another church until I started serving at my first church in college. So for 21 years, from the crib roll, all the way through my 21st year. And even in that, even though I was, you know, working as a youth minister at a church across town, um, like uh, it was the it was the Christmas of '94. Um, the church licensed me and three other guys, on Christmas, Christmas Day, I guess it was. And so, yeah, that was a consistent thing. And as you talked about the churches being different, but the scripture and your time with your devotional life, I would almost say, unf- and maybe this is a detriment, or it's definitely a different feature to my faith. My faith was built on a lot of people, good, bad, or indifferent,
Yeah.
and yeah, some most amazing, right? But there were some sticky wickets there. There were some people that really disappointed, really let down, and maybe I didn't have the devotional moorings, that maybe that I probably should have. So yeah, I've always enjoyed music and stuff. I mean, I think that was something I was in the band and I sang in choirs and stuff, and of course, church music was a big deal. Our church had a really good, music program, and of course, I met my wife. We don't remember meeting. She was at that church probably. I think she was a third grader when she came to that church, and we never really remember meeting, a first meeting. She was just, and she says, I was there like a bad habit. So,
Okay.
which that's nice, but
Yeah.
yeah, like, um, yeah, faith and that church, and all of the things that went along with it. Like my father-in-law, my late father-in-law, he was my scoutmaster
Mm.
at the Boy Scout troop that was based there at that church. Um, my mother, um, she helped Jenny when she was baptized at the church, and, got her, changed and all that kind of stuff in the baptistry. I mean, it's just all these intermingled, intertwined, people. There's a common person in our lives that I grew up in the youth group with him, Jim, and he invited me to Ichthus, to that campus ministry, because I had tried another couple and they were just not good fits at all. And
Yeah.
so it ended up, that was a better fit. So, and of course, um, I wanted to, yeah, anyway, that's kind of who I am with faith. It's always been I remember, I was going to say this, and I will say it. When I was 14 years old, at a camp, we went to Glorieta, New Mexico, to a camp, and I remember telling my roommate, at, Lyndall Jones, who was our music minister's kid, the youngest of three boys. I said, "Man, I think I want to do this the rest of my life." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Camp." And he goes, "Well, okay." And I said, "Man, those guys, I didn't know at the time they're college students or seminary students who
Right,
were
right.
pouring into us, And
Yeah.
so, um, and he goes, "Well, yeah, maybe God's calling you into the ministry." And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" But he grew up in a pastor's family, so he kind of knew that. And um, so that I can remember that back in that time, even back as far back as then, um, I was going to be in some sort of a ministry setting. The identity that I'm walking through, it's a
Mhm.
reconstruction, maybe not a deconstruction, but finding my identity not in my service, my vocational service, but my actual, you know, walk with Jesus. So we
Right,
can talk a
right.
little bit about that as we go on. So,
Um,
um, so tell
I
me,
wanted to
yeah, go ahead.
oh, so I was just gonna add that you made me think about this when you were talking, you know, we don't know who's watching or listening, to us, and obviously, we are very well aware that, people have a variety of different experiences with church and
Yeah,
history with church and
yeah,
even experiences with their faith, and, um, we, appreciate that. We appreciate that, people have had different routes and journeys with this. And just for the record, whenever we talk about um, the church, we're talking about the capital C church in general when we're
that's
talking about
good.
construct, like
Yeah,
not a specific church in a specific town, but
right,
church or a specific denomination, but just this idea of the church in general,
right,
unless we're giving a specific example of something that happened, with us
right.
in a specific church. So I think that's important to note. But yes, uh, this whole idea though,
Yeah,
like
yeah. Tell me a little bit.
mental health, faith,
th-
church.
yeah, this has been, gosh, 2 or 3 years in the making. So
Yeah.
tell me why this matters to you.
Yeah, I love this. This is the best question uh, of this. And then you're going to share why it matters to
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
too. Um, so, I mean, for me, it's always been intertwined, right? So even as a kid, of course, I just shared about, learning about faith, being involved in churches, ministries, all these things. But my mental health was front and center too, because
Mm,
I will get into this later and we'll talk about this in some of our episodes. I was an undiagnosed neurodivergent kid. I
okay.
had Most of my understanding about that came as an adult
Okay.
because it just wasn't understood when I was a kid. But I certainly did, as a child, have sensory processing disorder. Did I think had a pediatrician once say I had social anxiety disorder, which was like, that's a no brainer to me. Yeah, I don't want to go out and hang out with people. They make me anxious. Um,
Uh,
and a few things going on that people just didn't understand. It
right.
was a different time. But it put me in places where my mental health was always kind of front and center.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it kind of dictated what I was doing or wanted to do and how I did it. And then how that even played out in these spaces,
Yeah.
we'll call church or ministry spaces, how that played out in supportive ways and how it played out in ways that were very not supportive and even kind of contributed to the challenges I was having.
Yeah.
And so it's always kind of been interconnected for me,
Hmm.
these ideas and these concepts that we're going to talk about in this podcast. And that's never gone away. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
as a young adult, as a present adult, I mean, it's still the same. I'm always kind of in this place of thinking about where does my personal mental health places, neurodivergence, intertwine with my faith, intertwine with my experiences of going into these more organized religious spaces.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
also on the work side for my clients,
Yeah.
because so many of them have mental health needs, are neurodivergent, and some of them have had, you know, really poor, unhelpful experiences with churches. Some have had helpful experiences.
Yep.
Some are trying to figure out, what to do with their current self and
Yeah.
their faith in the church because they have a lot of questions or confusion. So on all fronts, I guess, it just feels like it's my life. And
Yeah.
so we've been
Yeah.
talking about it informally, like you mentioned, for years because it's an important, all these are important topics to you too.
Yeah.
And we finally were like, let's do something more with this.
Yeah.
You know, those
Yeah.
times we had conversations like, oh, wow, we should be saying this somewhere. Let's do a training. Let's do a podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Um, and finally, we're here, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of what brought me here to this and brought me to, these topics together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how about you? I definitely
Yeah.
think you have some really good experiences and ideas about this too.
Yeah. I didn't realize, I mean, I think I was undiagnosed ADHD for until I was about 40. Or maybe, I mean,
It happens.
I think my first therapist that I went to. So, you knew me when we were in the middle of our church plant
Mhm.
season, and so I was 20. I guess I was 28 when we started that deal, and then probably at about what 34, 35, I really was in a pickle. I was burnout, depressed, anxiety, all the stuff, all the traits of just being cooked. And so I went and talked with him. And again, there was a lot of stuff with my father that I didn't realize. And again, I'm not a mental health professional like you. And so I didn't understand that a lot of people have those things. Um,
Mhm.
and especially when and I'm a very non-compliant kind of person. And people will
Mhm.
understand that. Jenny calls me the irreverent reverend, and so um, when he would ask stuff about my dad, I'm like, I but with my first one, first of all, my first counselor, I was kind of scared of because he was like,
Mhm.
not that he was intimidating, but he was just brilliant. I was like a super guy, and I kind of just ignored. stuff. And part of it was I just wanted to get well enough to move forward. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be able to not be in the fetal position and
Sure.
function, you know?
Yeah.
And then when we moved from the church plant to um, what we thought was going to be this better situation for us as a family. And to be honest, it was. It was good, and it had some challenges as well. But part of the deal that I made with Jenny was okay. I'm pretty good on with my mental health stuff. I'm pretty good. We're gonna go, and we didn't have the money to pay for both of us to be in therapy at the same time, right? So I
Yeah.
said, why don't you go and see a counselor, see somebody. And so I think I'm like frozen up there, but that's okay. Up, I went away. There I went.
And you
Uh,
came back.
and I came back. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. And
You
I
came back, but
and
you're a
I
little
came
offset.
out. I came back and I went to the side too. So we'll fix that
Yeah.
in post. Let's see. Um, what happened here? There it goes. I think it's this thing here. Yep, there it is. Okay,
You got you got it.
that's better.
It just seems fitting that it happened to the ADHDer.
Absolutely. So now I'm totally off. I,
Right.
I am totally off now. It's like pew, squirrel. There it is. So so I told Jenny, I said, because she was in this a struggle as well, um, it just takes a toll. Sometimes church life takes a toll,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
especially on the um, when church members come up and they say, I'm really struggling with whatever it is, and I don't think the church understands. I totally get that because I would say it's almost exacerbated for staff, for pastors and staff. I think it's a really difficult, it's like a crucible. So she went to a counselor in the place where we were at, and the 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 therapist asked, tell me a little about yourself, and she said, well, um, I'm married to a minister, a pastor, church planter, and we moved to this area to for him to be a campus pastor at a multi-site church. And she laughed. And Jenny was kind of like freaked out, and she goes, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. She goes, my son is a former church planter that has dealt with some burnout and is now a campus pastor at a multi-site church in Kansas City.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so it's just like this bizarre, just and so for her that was a very comforting time for her, for us to kind of walk through, at least to have some of those. We had permission to have the conversations, but they had to be with a therapist.
Right. Right.
And so, and then we talk about the D word in pastoral circles.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll talk about some of this. I'm not burning any bridges, but I was kind of forced out of a church because of my, that I took an antidepressant. That's part of the
Mhm.
deal. That's
Right.
we don't want to talk about it. Those are the things that you just need to pray more, Robert. I mean, if you
Yeah.
didn't, you wouldn't be here. And again, it's very Job's friends ish, and so that's why I feel like this topic matters to me. And also, again, the kids, the families, the clients that you deal with. First of all, I am one. I are one. with my ADHD, I guess. But also, growing up, my mom and dad were very involved with the Arc of the Ozarks, and so those with mental retardation and disabilities and developmental disabilities, and so um, I just have a heart for that. My mother in law, my in laws, both were integral part of the special needs class at our church growing up. And so I have a heart for those that are trying to fit in, but yet sometimes, and that again, I feel like we can talk about this here. Sometimes we're just not very helpful as a church. And again, that capital C church, as a rule, we're not as winsome and as inviting and whatever to those folks who don't look exactly like us. And so, how do you, when you hear from a therapist like you, who's a person of faith, who says, "Hey, I think you need to try to exercise some of your faith muscles. And I think it would be good for you to go to see if you can find some faith community." And what happens when it just doesn't go well, and it actually causes more trauma? So that's why I've loved this. I mean, you have been my coach and my therapist for a long time, and but you've walked us through these things, and we've had these conversations, and I just think that we need to bring some of these things to light, so that I think I've got a dog that's coming to visit me. So how cool
Perfect.
is that? Of course it is. So um
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah, I think
I
we've
love
covered it.
yeah, I love what you shared, and I love your personal experiences with, how you saw mental health looking and being addressed, in the church yourself. Um, I just want to say, we're going to wrap this up here pretty quickly. We are not going to spend every podcast talking about ourselves. This is
Right.
one time only, just at the beginning. So if people watch this podcast or listen to it, they know a little bit about where we're coming from and who
Yeah.
we are. But we've
Yeah.
got a lot of, I think, really important topics. We're going to talk about trauma in the church. We're going to talk about ministry burnout. You mentioned a little bit of that. We're going to talk about neurodivergence in the church. There's just a lot of good topics coming up. So please check out, future episodes. We're glad that you're here and that you watched or listened. And please come back, share with a friend, tell them about our episode and our podcast. And we'll see you on the next one.
That sounds
Thank you.
awesome. Yep.